War is the forge where legends are cast in iron and fire, and the American Civil War stands as its ultimate American testament. Upon the battlefields of this nation-defining struggle, a unique class of lieutenant generals ascended from the turmoil, carving history with their intellect, valor, and strategic mastery. But who truly stands above all others? In this feature, we will reveal the sagas of 5 unparalleled commanders, men whose very names resonate as eternal emblems of leadership and courage. From audacious Confederate strategists to Union leaders who reversed the war's momentum, join us as we rank the 5 most exceptional lieutenant generals of the American Civil War. We start with number 5. William Tecumseh Sherman was a commander of profound audacity and strategic vision, becoming one of the most formidable leaders in the Union Army, recognized for his relentless campaigns and psychological warfare. Born on February 8, 1820, in Lancaster, Ohio, Sherman was shaped by family tragedy and the mentorship of prominent figures after his father's death. His foster family included Thomas Ewing, a powerful senator, which paved his way to a military future. Despite a mixed academic record at West Point, graduating in 1840, Sherman embarked on a path that would see him become a central figure in the Civil War. His pre-war service included duty in California during the Mexican-American War and a frustrating stint in banking and education, which ended in disappointment. When the nation split, Sherman was resolute in his loyalty to the Union, though he initially feared the conflict's scope. His early war service included leadership at the First Battle of Bull Run. He then assumed command of the Department of the Cumberland, where he struggled with intense pressure and was briefly sidelined, accused of instability. His resilience, however, brought him back. He found his footing under Ulysses S. Grant, forming a legendary partnership. Sherman's leadership at Shiloh in 1862 was critical, though the bloody battle attracted criticism for his being surprised by the Confederate attack. His genius was ultimately manifested in the Western theater. Promoted to lieutenant general, he masterminded the capture of Atlanta in 1864, a victory that ensured President Lincoln's re-election and shattered Confederate morale. His subsequent march to the sea defined modern warfare, applying total war to break the South's will and capacity to fight by targeting its economic and infrastructural backbone. His armies marched through Georgia and the Carolinas, delivering a devastating blow from which the Confederacy could not recover. Unlike many generals, Sherman understood that victory required shattering the enemy's spirit as well as defeating its armies. After the war, he succeeded Grant as commanding general of the U.S. Army and was a steadfast voice against misleading lost cause narratives. He declined all requests to run for political office, famously stating, "If nominated, I will not run. If elected, I will not serve." Sherman passed away in 1891, leaving a complex legacy as a brilliant strategist who brought the war to a decisive close, a man both revered and revolved, but whose impact on military history is absolutely undeniable. Thomas Stonewall Jackson was a career soldier whose service for the Confederacy made him an icon of military brilliance and devout determination. Born in what is now West Virginia and orphaned as a child, Jackson overcame a difficult upbringing through sheer force of will and an unshakable faith. His early life was one of hardship, instilling in him a stern discipline and resolve. He graduated from West Point in 1846 and immediately served in the Mexican-American War, where his courage at Chapultepec earned him promotions and acclaim. A deeply religious and peculiar man, Jackson later taught at the Virginia Military Institute, where he was considered a mediocre lecturer by his students, who could not yet see the genius he would unleash on the battlefield. When Virginia seceded, Jackson joined the Confederate cause. He earned his famous nickname at the First Battle of Bull Run, where his brigade stood like a stone wall. He then revolutionized warfare during his spectacular 1862 Valley Campaign, employing rapid movement and audacious attacks to defeat multiple larger Union armies, cementing his legend. As a lieutenant general commanding a corps under Robert E. Lee, Jackson was the perfect instrument for Lee's aggressive strategies. His flawless flanking maneuver at Chancellorsville in 1863 is considered one of the most masterful tactical actions in military history, routing the Union 11th Corps and setting up a stunning Confederate victory. Tragedy struck at the climax of this triumph when Jackson was mistakenly shot by his own pickets while returning from a reconnaissance. His left arm was amputated, and he initially seemed to be recovering before succumbing to pneumonia on May 10, 1863. His death was a catastrophic loss for the Confederacy from which it never truly recovered. Robert E. Lee lamented that he had lost his right arm. A soldier of profound faith and silent resolve, Thomas Jackson remains the ultimate what-if of the Civil War, a military virtuoso whose death forever altered the conflict's trajectory. James Longstreet, famously known as Lee's war horse, was one of Robert E. Lee's most trusted and effective commanders during the Civil War. Born on January 8, 1821 in South Carolina, but raised primarily in Georgia and Alabama, Longstreet grew up with a strong sense of Southern identity despite his family's Northern roots. His early life was shaped by his uncle, Augustus Baldwin Longstreet, a prominent states' rights advocate and mentor who instilled in him loyalty to the South. Longstreet graduated from West Point in 1842, ranking near the bottom of his class, but he quickly distinguished himself as a soldier during the Mexican-American War. He participated in key battles such as Monterrey and Churubusco, where his bravery earned him promotions and recognition. It was during this time that he developed lifelong friendships with future Civil War figures, including Ulysses S. Grant and George Pickett. At the outbreak of the Civil War, Longstreet resigned from the U.S. Army and joined the Confederacy despite personal reservations about secession. Commissioned as a brigadier general, he commanded troops at the First Battle of Bull Run and quickly rose through the ranks to become a lieutenant general in Lee's Army of Northern Virginia. Known for his methodical approach and defensive expertise, Longstreet played pivotal roles in major Confederate victories such as Second Bull Run, Antietam, and Fredericksburg. Longstreet's leadership style was characterized by his preference for defensive tactics, which often clashed with Lee's aggressive strategies. This tension came to a head during the Battle of Gettysburg in July 1863. Longstreet disagreed with Lee's plan for an all-out assault on Union positions, but reluctantly carried out orders to oversee Pickett's charge, a disastrous offensive that resulted in heavy Confederate losses. His hesitation and disagreements with Lee during this campaign later made him a target of criticism from proponents of the lost cause narrative. After Gettysburg, Longstreet was transferred to the Western Theater, where he secured a crucial victory at Chickamauga, but clashed with General Braxton Bragg over strategy. His attempt to capture Knoxville failed, leading to further strain within Confederate leadership. Reunited with Lee in 1864, Longstreet was severely wounded by friendly fire at the Battle of the Wilderness, but returned to duty later that year, despite partial paralysis in his right arm. Longstreet's post-war life was marked by controversy. Unlike many former Confederates, he supported Reconstruction policies and endorsed Ulysses S. Grant's presidential campaign in 1868. These actions alienated him from Southern society and made him a target of scorn among lost cause advocates who sought to shift blame for the Confederacy's defeat onto him. Despite these attacks on his character, Longstreet served in various government roles, including U.S. Ambassador to Turkey and Railroad Commissioner. In his later years, Longstreet worked tirelessly to defend his legacy through public speeches and his memoirs, from Manassas to Appomattox. He passed away in 1904 at the age of 82, leaving behind a complex legacy as both a brilliant military commander and a divisive figure in post-war Southern politics. James Longstreet remains one of the most studied figures of the Civil War, a man whose battlefield prowess earned him respect even as his post-war decisions sparked controversy. Philip Sheridan was a dynamo of aggressive energy, becoming one of the Union's most feared and effective cavalry commanders. Short in stature but immense in presence, his relentless drive earned him the nickname Little Phil. Born to Irish immigrant parents in Albany, New York, in 1831, Sheridan's early life was modest. A contentious West Point experience, which included a year-long suspension for threatening a cadet with a bayonet, nearly derailed his career before it began. He graduated in 1853, just in time for frontier duty. The Civil War was his proving ground. Initially a quartermaster, he fiercely lobbied for a combat command. His leadership at the Battle of Boonville, though small in scale, caught the eye of superiors and earned him a promotion to brigadier general. Sheridan's philosophy was simple: constant, unyielding pressure. He commanded a division with distinction at battles like Perryville and Stone's River. But his true genius emerged when given command of the Cavalry Corps of the Army of the Potomac in 1864. His most celebrated campaign was in the Shenandoah Valley in 1864. Tasked with neutralizing the breadbasket of the Confederacy, he executed his orders with devastating thoroughness. He defeated Confederate General Jubal Early at Winchester, Fisher's Hill, and Cedar Creek. At Cedar Creek, his legendary ride from Winchester to rally his retreating troops and snatch victory from defeat became an iconic moment of the war. His strategy of burning farms and destroying resources, known as the burning, was brutal but effective, crippling the South's logistical capacity. In the final days of the war, Sheridan's forces were instrumental in cutting off Robert E. Lee's escape route at Appomattox, forcing the surrender. After the war, he oversaw reconstruction efforts in the South and later commanded the U.S. Army during the Indian Wars on the western frontier. He passed away in 1888 from heart failure, remembered as a fierce, uncompromising commander whose relentless tactics helped grind the Confederacy into submission. Ulysses S. Grant, the man who led the Union Army to victory in the Civil War and later served as the 18th President of the United States, was born on April 27, 1822, in Point Pleasant, Ohio. Originally named Hiram Ulysses Grant, a clerical error during his admission to West Point changed his name to Ulysses S. Grant, a name that stuck and became synonymous with military and political leadership. Born into a modest family, his father, Jesse Root Grant, was a tanner and abolitionist, while his mother, Hannah Simpson Grant, was deeply religious and reserved. Grant inherited his father's anti-slavery convictions and his mother's quiet determination. Grant's journey to greatness began at West Point, where he excelled in horsemanship but was otherwise an average student, graduating 21st out of 39 cadets in 1850 to 1843. Initially unenthusiastic about a military career, he joined the 4th Infantry Regiment and served in the Mexican-American War, 1846 to 1848. During this conflict, Grant gained invaluable combat experience and demonstrated exceptional bravery at battles like Molino del Rey and Chapultepec. These formative years honed his leadership skills and prepared him for the challenges he would face decades later. After the war, Grant married Julia Dent in 1848, a union that brought him stability and happiness despite familial tensions over her family's ownership of enslaved people. The couple had 4 children and remained deeply devoted to one another throughout their lives. However, Grant struggled during peacetime. Stationed in remote outposts in California and Oregon, he faced financial difficulties and developed a reputation for heavy drinking, issues that led to his resignation from the Army in 1854. The years that followed were marked by hardship. Grant tried farming, real estate, and other ventures, but failed repeatedly, even resorting to selling firewood on street corners to support his family. By 1860, his prospects seemed bleak, yet fate intervened with the outbreak of the Civil War in April 1861. Grant rejoined the Army as a colonel of volunteers and quickly rose through the ranks due to his competence and determination. His first major success came in early 1862 with the capture of Fort Donaldson in Tennessee. When asked for surrender terms by the Confederate commander, Grant famously replied, No terms except unconditional surrender. This victory earned him national recognition and the nickname Unconditional Surrender, Grant. Grant's strategic brilliance became evident during campaigns such as Vicksburg, 1863, where he secured control of the Mississippi River, effectively splitting the Confederacy in two. His leadership at Shiloh, 1862, and Chattanooga, 1863, further solidified his reputation as a relentless commander who understood the importance of total war. In March 1864, President Abraham Lincoln appointed Grant as Lieutenant General and Commander of all Union armies, the first officer since George Washington to hold this rank. Overseeing multiple theaters of war, Grant implemented a coordinated strategy that applied constant pressure on Confederate forces. His overland campaign against Robert E. Lee's Army of Northern Virginia showcased his tenacity despite heavy casualties. The prolonged siege of Petersburg, 1864 to 1865, ultimately forced Lee to abandon Richmond. On April 9, 1865, at Appomattox Courthouse, Lee surrendered to Grant, effectively ending the Civil War. Grant's magnanimity during the surrender negotiations, allowing Confederate soldiers to return home with their horses, helped lay the groundwork for national reconciliation. Following Lincoln's assassination just days later, Grant played a key role during Reconstruction. As president from 1869 to 1877, he championed civil rights for African Americans, signing laws guaranteeing their right to vote, and deploying federal troops to combat white supremacist groups like the Ku Klux Klan. However, his administration was marred by scandals involving corruption among subordinates. Despite these challenges, Grant remained a revered figure. After leaving office, he embarked on a world tour with his wife Julia before facing financial ruin due to failed investments. In his final years, while battling throat cancer, he wrote Personal Memoirs of Ulysses S. Grant, a literary masterpiece that secured his family's financial future. Grant passed away on July 23, 1885, leaving behind a legacy as one of America's greatest military leaders, a man whose resilience turned personal failures into national triumphs. And that concludes our ranking of the 5 greatest lieutenant generals of the American Civil War. These commanders, through their brilliance and their burdens, fundamentally directed the course of our nation's most defining struggle. Now we pose the question to you, the rootvolutionary community. Who, in your view, merits a place on this list? Did we overlook a pivotal leader, or do you concur with our assessments? And consider this. If these 5 generals were to meet on a hypothetical battlefield, unrestrained by history, commanding only their skill and intellect, who do you believe would achieve ultimate victory? Share your insights and opinions in the comments section below. And for more content that challenges perspectives and explores history's pivotal turns, make sure to like and subscribe to Rootvolutionary.